That was cheesy.
I don't care. You need a little cheese. Didn't you learn anything from Jabba's sail barge? Greetings, Trinitarians. This podcast is possible partly because of Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary in Evansville, Indiana. If you're interested in beginning your theological academic journey at Trinity, contact us at TrinitySem, that's TrinitySem.edu today.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Trinity Radio. I'm Jonathan Pritchett, and along with me is
Braxton Hunter.
And today you get a 2-for-1 because reasons.
And I'm fresh back from Australia, mate. So
it's not heresy. It's
it's Harrison.
Wow! They gave us nothing but tradition and no argument. All they did was get on this stage, yell real loud, and set a straw man on fire.
Okay, now I was not impressed. I've never heard of this gentleman before, but...
And there is no evidence at all, except in the imagination of Dr. Braxton and like-minded thinkers, that there is such a thing as an objective morality.
All right, well, that was a very passionate speech by Professor Alvarez. However, let me point out a couple of things that I have not argued tonight that Professor Alvarez seems to think that I have argued.
Everything that begins to exist must have a cause for its existence.
On behalf of humanity, God became man to die for the sin of the world. Then, because of that sacrifice, you can rise from the dead just like he rose from the dead. We are back.
Yes, and we are back in the studio. It is good to be home.
Yeah, and I am glad to be back in the studio.
Yes,
and if you do hear any construction sounds, they are still working next to the campus. Nevertheless, I'm glad to be back from the great nation of Australia. I was taken there I was whisked away to Australia by one of our Trinity Radio listeners. That just goes to show we will go to the ends of the earth for Jesus
and for our listeners. That's right.
You see that on my shirt.
Not we. I didn't get involved.
I have the elusive mythical creature of legend, the kangaroo. That's because you may know this. There's a subcategory of flat earthers who believes that Australia is a myth. I mean, Australia does not exist. Now, if you're one of those people, you'll just think that
this is a subcategory of flat earthers.
I think so.
Some flat earthers believe in Australia.
Yeah.
And
we don't want to give
don't.
flat earthers a bad reputation. Is that it?
Right. Okay.
But
when did this? All right. Now we're the bro down. So let's move on.
But here's the thing. So
Australia's real.
Australia is real. Although if you'll just suspect that I'm now in on the conspiracy, or I was duped. Perhaps the plane flew around for 17 hours and landed in Phoenix, Arizona, out in the desert or something. I don't know. But I'm telling you, and you know you can trust me or you wouldn't listen to this show, that Australia is real. But I didn't see a single kangaroo while I was there. I'm starting to believe that kangaroos are mythical creatures, along with perhaps koala bears.
Australia is real, kangaroos not.
Have you ever seen a wet koala bear? Go Google that. Not right now, but do it later. It's a good thing those things are myths because that is terrifying. But anyway, here we are, and we're ready to talk about a couple of things. The first thing that we want to talk about is Generation Z. Generation Z.
And atheists.
And atheism. And the question of whether or not atheism is still a problem. Now, you'll be happy to know I'm taking this episode seriously, Jonathan. I'm silencing my phone and my computer.
Right, yeah.
And I want to get serious.
You want to talk about atheists because you think that I think we talk too much about atheists, and now you found a statistic that says 13% of Generation Z folk, which is higher than
it's double
double what the normal average of percentage of atheists.
Double the previous generation.
Right.
Now that's not the only
double
reason.
Double the previous generation. The previous generation, the Generation Y, was 6%.
I don't know. I haven't started reading it yet.
6.5%, and then the
no. It's this: 13% versus 6% of all adults.
Of all adults.
So Generation Z atheist is no longer a dirty word. The percentage of teens who identify as such is double that of the general population.
Okay, so it's double the general population, not the previous generation.
Double adults.
Okay, so anyone 18
all
and older.
Other generations.
Right.
But here's the thing: this is all coming.
So
to
most
have you ever
adults
heard
still
of
5%.
Have you ever heard of a research institution called I think it's Barna Research Group.
Barna?
Yeah, Barna. Barna. I know Barna. Have you ever heard of them?
Yes.
Okay, this is coming to us from an article. This is from January of 2018. So this is almost a year old.
So old news.
Well, it's not old news. It's those teens. Most of them are still teens. So, but atheism doubles.
See how
among
far behind we are.
Generation
We're
Z.
just
no.
now getting
Actually,
to
I'll
this.
tell you why. I've arrived here. I've been trying to get it out. I'll get it out
Because he
now.
was looking for
I
data.
Still haven't gotten it out.
He was looking for data because he heard I wrote a journal article in Jess about we focus too much on atheists, and I always talk about how we focus too much on atheists because atheists are about 4 to 5% of the overall population. And he found the statistics say, ooh, this justifies my very ministry because I found a problem with atheists.
No, actually,
Is that what?
No, that's
No,
completely.
I found a way to refute Pritchett. That's why we're doing.
No,
this.
that's completely bunk. I think you're right that I don't think that's right, but I think it's right that the other world religions and worldviews need to be challenged like atheism needs to be challenged. I agree with that. Although I'm about to blow the lid off probably some of your thinking on this. So when I was in Australia, I was there at the National Convention of the Overseas Christian Fellowship, which is a campus ministry for overseas students in Australia. Now, from your perspective, all Australians
Now,
are
what's
overseas
Jeremy's relationship to this group?
Jeremy's a listener to the podcast.
No, what's his relationship with that group of
Oh, well,
people?
this year, he was like the guy organizing it. It's a student-led organization, so they shift that around.
So they forced him to do all the hard work.
Basically, I think that's
Right.
probably true. Although the organization's incredible. We did a video with Jeremy. You can go listen to that. It should be the last one up before this video. But here's the thing. So when I was there, they had a business meeting that comes prior to the national convention. And so you had 75 leaders there for these different centers all over Australia on campuses. And they brought in actually some workshop speakers for that. And I wasn't one of those workshop speakers. But I have a new friend. His name's David Gregg. And David Gregg's been has some blog articles in major publications. He's out there in also like the Gospel Coalition. He has an article there. And he's a Christian apologist. Pretty well known in Australia. Not like crazy famous, but well known and up and comer. And
So is you in Australia.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh,
thank you.
I'm sorry. You're
I appreciate
crazy
that.
famous. I'm
no,
sorry.
no. I thought you were going too far with that.
Oh,
but
no.
But anyway, I appreciate that. But I was talking to. I spent most of the day that day after his workshop talking to him. And one thing that he shared with me is he came to Dallas Theological Seminary in the States. Mm-hmm. And then he went back to Singapore, maybe? It was either Singapore or Malaysia, I think, and continued his education there. And it was funny because if I've got this right, I know that the message is right. I'm trying to get the professors right. I think what he said was that at Dallas Theological Seminary, he was told that in the West, the question is, why should I believe in God? But in the East, the question is, which God should I believe in? That's what the Dallas Theological Seminary guy, I think he said, told him. He went back to the East, and the professor in the East said, no. The question in the East is now, why should I believe in God? So the point was that Westerners tend to think that in the East, the question is,
which God out of all
should
God?
And it's no, the internet has shrunken the earth, and the question is now still, just like in the East, like it is in the West, why should I believe in God? So, or any God. So,
well, and given that the overall adult population in the West here is almost entirely theists, that's not the question in the West. Given how much godless communism is in the East, that's for Bedford. That doesn't surprise me that the guy in the East said that.
well, it's just.
So I agree with him, but I still disagree with the Dallas Theological. That's not the question. Is why should I believe in God in the West? That's not the question. Most of them do believe in God.
The question when it comes to theism is, why should I believe in God? And he's saying that's the same in the East and the West now.
Yeah, I'm saying that's not the question in the West.
Well, when it comes to theism.
Yeah, when it comes to theism, the question is in the West is the question that Oprah asked was talking about in the old introduction to Trinity Radio, about which God? The God I believe in might not be the God that you believe in. Isn't that what?
Yeah, but
That's the question.
Okay,
That's the real
But the thing about it is, I know you want to salvage that view that the atheism issue doesn't need that much of our attention anymore.
No, that's not what I said. I said
Okay.
that it doesn't need a disproportionate amount of apologetic attention, given that it is the smallest problem that apologists are facing. But overwhelmingly, apologists
It's not the
focus
smallest
on-
problem apologists are facing.
Smallest
it's
people
one
group,
of
yeah.
it's one. No,
Because you can take all the weird Wiccans and everything else and put them in the same bucket and deal with cults. And
yeah,
or
you
deal
can.
with
But here's a
mystical
problem that I
religions.
don't know if you've
And
considered.
that would still
that some of these, because we discussed this too. Some of these other worldviews, like the just
Mm-hmm.
spiritual type things, or even some of the cults, are not interested in. Some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are not interested in intellectual answers. Atheists say they are interested in intellectual answers.
I noticed you.
Right.
Atheists say
Right.
I saw you catch that because I was going because you.
I think
know.
everyone saw that. That was kind of intentional.
Oh.
They say they are interested in
Yes.
intellectual reasons. So by their
Until
own
you talk to
stated
them.
by their own stated beliefs, yeah, we're going to see that in a minute, I think, with this data. But the thing is, by their own stated beliefs, they should have to care if you're trying to have give them intellectual reasons. Some of these other views are like, yeah, it's just like your opinion, man. They don't care. They don't care. Some of these, especially like the I'm spiritual crowd.
Okay, but
so that means that though those people are we should have preachers and evangelists working on those people, and apologists should give the answers that we can give so that that's available.
Yes.
The group that is like, no, what are your reasons?
now what's interesting is
atheism.
Is yeah, that's their reasoning. And what's interesting is Generation Z has more atheists than other generations, right?
Yeah.
Double that of the normal adult population. So you take boomers, you take Gen Xers like me, and millennials, and out of all that, they double.
Yeah, and it's
any other
growing.
group. Yeah, and grow. Okay, there's also data that says Generation Z is the most Christian and most religious out of all of them too. So that's interesting.
Well, did you bring that data with us today? Because
we talked about that data a few
I'm
episodes
looking at
ago.
I'm looking at a Barna research thing,
Right.
That says that it's growing. That this doubled
right
of the population.
right to 13%. Well, that leaves a whole bunch of other percentage points out there that can be Christian and more Christian than the millennials.
Well, okay, sure.
remember we talked about this in our previous episode, but I don't have the stats now because I don't care and forgot them.
Well, you're just making generalized.
No, I'm
statements.
encouraging people to go back and watch the other video.
You should. You should go back and listen to
Right.
all the other episodes.
Yes.
So, but
I mean, we can pause it. I can get out my smartphone so it looks like I know off the top of my head things that I don't know, but we don't fake it here.
right. We're giving it to you straight and
Right.
real.
And I didn't fake it when I had the
So-
stats from the old episodes to go watch it. So, okay.
So what has led to this precipitous falling off, despite the fact that you don't think that that it's that relevant, or
No, I said this is actually interesting because it's double. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That's interesting. And it's also interesting that the most predominant atheist age group is that.
oh, by the way, if you're
Contrasted
new,
with the fact that they're also their fellow Generation Zers are
Mm-hmm.
more religious.
if you're new to Trinity Radio, by the way, our entire last season 8 maybe or 7, I don't know, 8.
8.
Most of season 8 was us looking at videos from people of various worldviews and why
Mm-hmm.
they believe what they believe, and then interacting with it. So, and that was a structure.
This is it's
that was a
called
program
Weimar,
structure
right.
I came up with. So
Weimar.
I'm not denying you. Yeah, the Weimar series.
This is why Generation Z is.
Yeah, we could call this a Weimar.
Or
yeah,
why
because
they're
they're
a.
gonna. Yeah, why they're a. So here it is.
why they're a. Are you gonna give that a weird spelling?
This is
Like the
maybe.
Weimar? Yeah.
I'll try. I'll probably just
Wythera is
call
going
it
to sound either look like prescription drugs or
Wythera. Have you tried Wythera? Now understand that if you take Wythera, it could lead to suicidal
or if you
thoughts.
take
and
Weimar, you
tendencies.
could get a bad case of Wythera
Yeah, you could get Wythera.
from taking Weimar.
Oh man. Okay. Somebody make us a meme, Wythera. It needs to look like, for those that are going to do it, it needs to look like one of those drug commercials
That's right.
with like a slanted font real sleek looking, and some lady like drinking a cup of coffee, and now she's happy because she has this Pfizer medication. All right, so let's move on now and look at the Barna data. Here's what the article says. So what has led to this precipitous falling off? Barna asked non-Christians of all ages about their biggest barriers to faith. Gen Z, non-believers, have much in common with their older counterparts in this regard, but a few differences stand out. Now notice this. Teens, along with young adults, are more likely than older Americans to say the problem of evil and suffering is a deal breaker for them. It appears that today's youth, like so many throughout history, struggle to find a compelling argument for the existence of both evil and good and loving God and a good and loving God. You know why they're not finding that? Because that's out there. It's like the same reason why people, escaped convicts can't find a police officer.
So the one argument...
Hold on. Is why escaped convicts can't find a police officer. They're not looking for one, right?
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting that
That's not fair. Some of them might be.
The biggest hang-up is the one argument that Planiga and company put to bed towards the conclusion of the 20th century.
That you're talking about the logical argument.
Yeah, still, the problem of evil. We answer the probabilistic problem of evil the exact same way.
Yeah.
So, done. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Well, yeah, for those that don't know, by the way, there is a topical video that is probably my favorite of all my topical videos on the youtube.com/Braxton Hunter. And you can go watch it. It's 11 minutes long, but it's worth every minute, I think.
Certainly worth more than this episode.
And you can get to, this has been pretty fun so far. And you can watch me ride a skateboard. You can watch me ride a skateboard in downtown Evansville. But I think that's a good one. Check that out because I think it answers it in a little way. And you can share that around if you know a Gen Z person who's having all this trouble finding out how to use the internet to type the words argument from evil Christian and see what the Christians say to this, because it's not that hard to find the responses. I don't know if this needs to be a whole show about the problem of evil. But
where it's about the data about the Generation Z adults.
So But the thing that
not all Generation Z are adults yet, by the way.
The thing here's right, they're mostly teenagers.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I think needs to be said as someone who is fascinated by, and this will segue later into our second topic. But the thing that I think is so powerful, there's a lot of people who say that in terms of arguments for God's existence, the moral argument is their favorite. Mm-hmm. That's not my favorite, but it is a lot of people's favorite. And I know why.
Because it connects with people.
It's personal. It packs an emotional punch.
They can
it's not
relate.
Arguing from emotion. That would be a fallacy.
Right.
But it does have an emotional punch to it.
It has an emotional resonance where it's relatable. It's like, yes, because what do we always say? People will say, torturing babies for the fun of it is wrong and everyone knows it, right? Somebody will throw that in inevitably. William Lane Craig, whoever. Yeah. And people are like, yeah.
Yeah, well,
that makes sense.
Don't want to be an educational show. Real quick, I'll keep it very simple. But the moral argument does not say that all Christians do good things and all atheists do bad things, and they suck the blood of children and they're awful. That's not what it says.
Never been.
The point is that, from a human perspective, anyway, Christians and atheists both do good and bad things. But the fact that there is a category good and a category bad and right and wrong indicates that there is a God, because if there is no God, who's to say? It just becomes a matter of opinion.
And so formally the argument goes, if objective morality...
If God does not exist.
If God does not exist, objective morality does not exist. Objective morality exists, therefore God exists.
Right. Yeah. So by objective, you might supplant there, just for simplicity, fact. If you believe that moral truths are fact and not opinion. So when he said torturing babies for the fun of it is wrong and everybody knows that it's wrong, what he's saying is it's objectively wrong. It's a matter of fact that it's wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. And if everyone on earth thought that it was okay to torture babies for the fun of it, they'd just all be wrong. Just like if they thought 2 + 2 = 13, they'd just all be wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact. And if it's a matter of fact, God exists, because if God does not exist, then who's to say that it's wrong?
Yeah, but most people object to the first premise these days. Because relativists would object to the second premise and maybe concede the first. But now more and more atheists...
They're coming back around. They want to say it's wrong.
Saying, if God does not exist, objective morality does
still exists.
Yeah, they're going to say, it still does. You don't need God for objective morality. How, they never tell us.
Right. Well, they try to.
Well, no, I mean, they keep explaining, they try to root it
Well,
in...
if you've got a guy like Michael Shermer, sorry, Michael Shermer, but what he'll do is he'll just bounce back and forth. Well, of course it's objective, and then he'll give all these subjective reasons why it's objective.
Right.
And I genuinely am not sure he understands what we're talking about here.
Right.
If
you're Sam Harris...
If you're Christopher Hitchens, what you would have said, he's passed away now, but what Christopher Hitchens would have said is, oh, you mean that Christians do good things and atheists do bad things? No,
you're
and
confusing epistemology with ontology.
It's all explained to him. Then the next debate, oh, you're saying that Christians do good. So anyway, whether that was intentional or what, I don't know. But they do try. Some will just say, well, it just is real.
Yeah, and if you're Sam Harris, you root it in human existence and say, well, it's a meaningless question if there are no humans, but since there are humans, it's as objective as you can get.
Right. Or you'll get somebody like Matt Dillahunty who says it's objective in the following way. There's it's not objectively true. The rules of chess are not objectively, like, transcendentally right or wrong, right? Correct or incorrect. But now that we have this game that we've created, chess,
you have to play by the rules.
You play by the rules.
Which is just cultural moralistic relativism.
It's still subjective,
It's cultural relativism, moral relativism.
In the way that we're discussing objective and subjective.
We're just going to say, let's design some rules for chess and call it morality.
But at least a guy like that is happy to say, as he recently did say in a debate with a guy, I forget the guy's name, but John Ferrer, in a recent debate, he said, for me, it's objectively wrong because I'm playing this moral game. But if you don't think that's wrong, if I'm drowning in a pond and you don't think it's wrong to let me drown, then you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel obligated to save me.
Right, which is why he defeats his own argument, and he's not talking about objective morality. He's talking about subjective cultural relativism, moral relativism, and calling it objective.
Right.
Which is...
And he'll say that. He'll say, fine.
Then use the right language. Or get out of show business.
So anyway, you got these different spread. But the point is, the moral argument packs an emotional punch because if an atheist is gutsy enough to say, nope, it is just all subjective, it is a matter of opinion, and some of them do say that.
Yeah, they do.
And if you're going to say that, then what you are saying
is torturing.
Let's not talk about Matt Dillahunty drowning in a pond. Let's talk about
eating babies,
killing gay people just because they're gay.
Yeah.
That's provocative, right? Okay, that's horrible. We would say that is objectively morally wrong.
Yes.
But
the Christian would say that.
The Christian would say to kill gay people because they're gay is wrong.
The atheist,
but the atheist who believes in subjective morality has to say, well, it's not like actually wrong. You're just doing what you like to do.
It's just not socially advantageous.
Right. So anyway,
so if you don't care about social advantageousness, then just go kill a gay person if you're an atheist.
But that's to make a point. They don't do that. Okay,
right. To make a point.
We're making a point about subjective morality.
The point is, if you are an atheist and you are a moral relativist, you have to concede that it's really not wicked to go kill gay people. You just don't like it.
Right. But thank goodness the Christians who believe in objective morality love gay people and don't want you to go kill them, right?
Right. Well,
thank goodness for Christians.
Well, yes, and thank goodness for God's existence to actually give some meat to the fact that it is actually wrong to go kill a gay person.
Right.
Because according to atheist worldview, whether they affirm objective morality or not, they have no basis for it. But
so
the point is
the moral argument packs an emotional punch.
Yeah.
And so does the problem of evil, but from the other perspective. Wait a minute. Your God, this is the problem of evil for those that don't, the problem of evil is there's evil, and Christians agree there's a problem of evil because there's evil and it's a problem. But an atheist
I like the way you say that. Can you say that exactly like that again?
I probably can, yeah. The Christians believe in the problem of evil because there's evil, and Christians agree that's a problem. Right? So
that needs, take a picture of him and put that like in a quote
but that's true, right?
No, it's a good quote.
There's a difference between the problem of evil and an argument from evil. The problem of evil is what we agree on.
Yeah.
We agree with the atheist there's a problem of evil.
Yes.
When you're doing work in this area as a Christian philosopher, you're doing work on the problem of evil. What are you doing work on? The problem of evil. That doesn't mean I'm dealing with an atheistic argument from evil. An argument from evil is different, and an argument from evil, I teach a class on this, and an argument from evil may come in one of two forms.
And you could sign up and audit that course at Trinity College Bible and Theological Seminary at TrinitySem.edu.
The logical argument from evil, very good. The logical argument from evil is the one that tries to say, presents it as though it is not possible. Like, if you have a loving and all-powerful God, then you wouldn't have evil. You can go look at the hedonist philosopher Epicurus for that, and he died as a rock star in a bathtub on top of a mountain with kidney failure, drunk on wine, and saying it was the best day of his life. So, make of that what you will.
And speaking of the problem of evil
atheism
and
for you. It's
suffering in the
happening.
world, you're probably suffering the problem of trying to find your wife a spouse. So if you go to, James Avery Jewelry, who's sponsoring Soteriology 101,
What are you buzz marketing for them?
Tell
for?
them that Trinity Radio sent you. Go get your wife a gift and tell them to advertise with us.
Maybe they'll advertise with us.
Right.
We
I'm doing
need an
the
advertiser.
Leighton Flowers Ben Shapiro thing where
What's the
they
name of
insert
that?
commercials at random in the middle of the program.
What's that weird green slop garbage water that you drink?
Diet Citrus Drop from
Maybe
Big K.
Diet Citrus Drop will
They-
market on this
they
program.
should.
We're looking at you, Diet Citrus
That's
Drop.
right, Big K.
All right. So, but the problem of evil, the argument from evil, can come as a logical argument, which tries to say there's not.
There's a
an
logical
answer.
contradiction in the
God's
existence of
nature.
God and bad things in the world.
Right. And that's dead in the
Dead.
water. It's alive with YouTube atheists who have not sought higher education. But what it's trying to say,
Or
it's
read
not
a blog,
possible. But
Or read an atheist who admits that it's dead on any
right, I mean,
atheist blog.
Get the book that's called The Evidential Argument from Evil, and you can read a host of atheists saying that argument's dead in the water. But the better argument, at least in terms of its persuasiveness, is the evidential argument from evil, which
in
doesn't
the
say,
same way that the moral argument is persuasive to people in that relatable emotional punch, the probabilistic problem of evil is their counterpoint to that, in that it connects with the listener in the same way with that punch that's relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say they both probably pack that punch because,
Yeah.
but the evidential actually has a better shot at going through. It doesn't go through, but apparently
It doesn't have a
Generation
better.
Z thinks
It doesn't
does.
have a better shot than going through than the moral argument.
No. It has a better shot of going through than the logical argument.
Right,
because the logical argument, all you got to do is show any possible reason God might allow evil and be still a loving God. The evidential argument is a probabilistic argument. It's saying it's less likely
Right.
that there's a God.
Because then
given
you
all this
just
evil.
pile on examples after examples
Right.
after examples. And it's not an appeal to pity either. They're just trying to illustrate the extent of the problem.
Right.
And so in the same way, when we say torturing little babies for the fun of it is bad, and you know it's bad, and everyone's like, yeah, I know that's bad, that's why we're going to vote for that argument. When they say there are people in the world that are actually torturing little
Yeah, that's
babies,
right.
and because God isn't really
Why doesn't
doing
God
much to
stop?
stop it, these babies who are being tortured and eaten and whatever else, you add
Jeez.
that with the fact, and he's not trying to appeal to your, he's just trying to illustrate the extent of the evil in the world, and little
yeah.
girls are being sex trafficked and all of this other stuff. And after they pile on this evidence, that's why it's called the evidentiary probabilistic, is because they pile on all of this stuff about there's so much evil, and it's like, yeah, I mean, they're right. God in this can exist, but does this look like the world that has a God in it?
Right.
And so
it packs an emotional punch.
Yes.
And there is an intellectual component to it as well. And so that has appealed to Generation Z, because one thing that we know about Generation Z, according to the data anyway, is that they want, I'm trying to find the quote exactly, but the Barna article says that nearly half of teens, on par with millennials, want factual evidence to support their beliefs. So you're giving them something that is an intellectual presentation that is combined with an emotional punch that they are experiencing.
yeah.
And then that works with them. The thing is, teens, listen to me, Generation Z.
Does anyone of Generation Z watch this program?
If they're not, then they're being disingenuous because they're saying they can't find an answer to this problem. And if they're looking for one, they're going to land here. And here is the answer. There are several answers. And let me run through them quickly. One answer is that perhaps God created a world that he knew would have pain and suffering in it because he knows that experiencing pain and suffering builds moral character and integrity.
That's the soul building.
That'd be character building. There's also a soul building that's similar, and runs off of a character building. And the idea is that it's true. I mean that much. Romans chapter 5 says that in the first several verses, and then James teaches that. And the thing about it is, we know it. It's obvious. All you have to do is meet someone who's battling cancer, and look at how they're a better person often. On the other side of that, if they survive, sometimes even if they don't survive, their character and integrity, and even us watching them. So that's true, but I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, you can read James chapter 1, 1 Peter chapter 1, and Romans chapter 5 and find biblical reasons for that. It's not like Christians, oh, really? There's hardship in life?
Yeah,
really?
Right. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Our Bible comes with the book of Job.
Yeah, so Christians, not surprised, book of Job's been there. It's possibly the oldest book in the canon. So.
Yeah, so the character building, and by the way, if you use the word theodicy, that's a compound Greek word that has to do with God and justice. How is God just in spite of all this evil? And so we call these theodicies, answers that people give. And that character building answer is certainly true, and that's one of them. But that doesn't give you the whole picture. Another one would be the heaven answer, that, hey, look, we're being prepared for heaven, and this will all one day have been a veil of tears, and in heaven we'll experience this will all have been like the birth pangs to glory or something. And
but only if you believe the gospel.
Right. That's one reason you have to deal with that. Now, there are some compelling heaven theodicies, and I do think that's part of it. I think it's part of the answer. But that's not all the answer. A third theodicy that people give is what's called a Reformed theodicy. And I have a nice quote from John Piper, who's an advocate of the Reformed theodicy, in the little topical video that I referenced earlier. And he basically talks about how, God determines everything that happens, but at least then it has a purpose. So if a child gets tortured, like you said, he would say, on your view, there might not have been a purpose for that. On God's view, at least he can redeem that and make there was a purpose. He's painting a beautiful picture, and every picture has some dark corners.
Which we don't agree with, because God can have a purpose in allowing something that he will redeem and not have determined it, as opposed to the idea that it can only have a purpose if it was determined by God to happen.
Right.
Is a non sequitur.
Right.
Your argument is flippantly dismissed. Okay,
right.
Anyway.
For example,
we could dismiss that with prejudice.
I would never
don't make that argument because it's stupid. Sorry, Reformed people, but your argument is at the face of it. Okay.
Now, Pritchett, I would never be the kind of parent that would let my daughter touch a hot pan or a hot stove or something.
But this says here, hot stove.
Yeah, that is a hot stove.
That's God doing that.
That's right, and I have a purpose for it. Right, that's the Reformed theology.
You need to learn from it.
But the thing about it is,
the only thing that anyone's going to get out of that,
God would.
Right.
No, never mind. I was just going to say he would affect your nature and your will such that you would freely want to do that. But anyway, the point is...
all that's going to happen is somebody's going to screen capture me holding your hand and say, see, look at those two.
But here's the thing. The thing is...
I'm practically begging people to do that at this point.
No, they got to make the Pfizer commercial.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But the thing is, on our view... even though I'm not the kind of parent that would let my daughter just touch a hot pan or something... Let's just say I was.
You wouldn't grab her hand and...
I might let her touch a warm stove or a hot stove or something. I wouldn't, but let's just say I would. I might let her do that with a purpose in mind, that she's freely doing it, but then once she does it, I can then teach her a lesson about that. And in a similar fashion, God might allow certain evils to happen so that he can then redeem that and do something great with it. So anyway, the point is, the Reformed theodicy is a possible theodicy, if you like. And then
but they got to represent it correctly. The Reformed theodicy is you grab your daughter's hand and throw it on the hot stove.
Yes. But...
And they're going to say, that's a character, that's a strong...
So I believe in two of the three we've given so far, but the fourth and best one, the one that... I can't say the best one. The one that is the engine behind the first two, and certainly doesn't work at all with the third one, the Reformed theodicy. The best one, the one that serves
free will,
is the free will theodicy that says...
The libertarian free will theodicy.
God wanted a people that could experience love and love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. But to have real, genuine love, it has to be freely given. If it's not freely given, It's not real love. It's not meaningful love. And so God created mankind with real freedom to make real choices so that you could get the love. And as listeners have heard me say many times, even in the garden, however you understand that story, there were two trees, the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Even there was a choice every day. Why did there need to be a choice? Atheists would say, well, that's just because it's clearly made up and God was setting them up for failure and all that. No. That's ridiculous. The reason that there was a choice is because there had to be something that Adam and Eve could sacrifice in order to obey and demonstrate their love toward God, because it has to be free. And so you have this freedom. But if you're God and you want to make free creatures so that you can get this incredible thing called love, then what that means is you have to live with the fact, even if you're God, that if you give them freedom, they're going to use it for good and for evil. You might say, well, why can't God just force them to always freely only do the right thing? And I would just ask you to replay what I just said really slowly and think about that. How can you force someone to freely do the right thing?
Or you can go to TrinitySem.edu or call one of our advisors and audit Braxton Hunter's course on the problem of evil.
That's absolutely right. So there you go. You're doing great. You're doing great. I don't know about that thing where you're hawking the jewelry, but that was pretty good. You're provoking them to advertise.
Because if one person calls and buys jewelry and says, yeah, they said on Trinity Radio about you doing something on some other show, you should give your money.
That's not what we're going. We're going for Diet Citrus Drop.
Yeah.
We want Diet Citrus Drop.
We're going to show that we can actually sell Leighton's sponsored stuff better than Leighton can. That's what we're after.
But by the way,
that'll never happen.
There are already some people who sponsor this show, and they are the great patrons that we have on our Patreon account. And by the way, those come and go. We've lost some patrons, we've gained some patrons, but we still haven't met our goals. So if you'd like to become a patron and give us a monthly donation, you believe in what we're doing
click
here.
Somewhere.
We're putting out Bible studies. I'm going to continue the Bible study. He's going to continue the Bible study. We're going to keep doing that. I just put out sermons this past week. We're traveling the world, literally going to the ends of the earth, trying to preach the gospel. So if you believe in what we're doing, just click up here somewhere, or if you're listening by audio as to the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Trinity Radio, and please do that. You are our sponsors currently.
And for all the patrons who are stuck with us, thank you. For the patrons that are no longer patrons, thank you as well. Interesting, we did lose some patrons in the month of December. That may just be because they got people they care about more than us.
But we're not winding down. We still got more shows, so don't turn us off, because it sounds like we're winding down, but you're right.
No, we're just doing more ads. So, this is a commercial break.
Well, we haven't mentioned the patrons, and on the next episode, I'll try to remember to read off all the names of the patrons.
But see, we have more to say about this, so it looks like we're going to punt the other topic to another show, which is perfectly fine.
You got more to say about this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Huh? Because we're talking about Generation Z, and there's other points in there that we haven't even got to. The fact that they're actually not particularly bothered by religious services. Yeah,
one thing is interesting. I don't know where that data is. I don't know. Among Generation Z churchgoers, those who have attended one or more worship services within the past month, perceptions of church tend to be more positive than negative. Strong majorities of church teens say that church, quote, is a place to find answers to live a meaningful life, 82%, and is relevant to my life, 82%, that I can be myself in church, 77%, and that, quote, people at church are tolerant of those with
those
different
82
views, 63%.
Yeah.
People at church are tolerant of those with different beliefs?
No way. I thought they were all hypocrite jerks.
Negative perceptions have significant currency, however. Half of church-going teens say, quote, the church seems to reject much of what science tells us about the world, 49%, and one-third that
they don't.
The church is overprotective of teenagers, 38%.
That's a problem. That's a problem. The church affirms, they think that the church, almost half think the church rejects science.
Yeah.
That's a problem, because the church, at least thoughtful churches, at least, maybe we're failing, because Christians have gone out of their way for 40 years now to say, no, we're all about science.
Now, I'll tell you what I think. Okay, so let's go through the data here.
So there's a thing that the church needs to get better and say, it's not that we're anti-science, because we're not. Let's take, science is a big thing, right?
Right.
What does that mean? We don't believe in microbiology?
You know what's going on here is what they're saying is they're hearing one thing at school, they're hearing something else from church, and it sounds to them as though the church disregards the sort of things that are being taught in science class.
So this is something we need to fix.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's
No,
run.
because when we're looking at this, that's a large number. 50% of Generation Z thinks that the church contradicts science, or this is something that's a bad number. It's something that can be corrected through apologetics. It's something that should be.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look at this. Whether it's valid or not is irrelevant. The fact is that's our perception, and so you got to deal with what they're saying. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's a bit high, half. That's a problem. So let's fix that problem.
So let's run down the things that they asked. Perceptions of church among church-going teens. The church is a place to find answers to live a meaningful life, 82%. The church is relevant for my life, 82%. I feel like I can be myself at church, 77%.
Okay, well, stop.
We've gone through these already.
Yeah, no, but a meaningful place to find answers, but not a meaningful place to get answers on for answers for life, but not answers to problems of evil.
So these might be like different realms.
Right, so what they're saying is I can go to church and I can find a sense of meaning and purpose in what I'm going to do for my daily life. But not so much if I want to understand the fundamentals about the nature of the world or why
I get my science at
God,
school. I get my Jesus at church or something.
Right, and so what we're seeing is churches are still failing at apologetics. Is what it sounds like.
You know, interestingly, there are several articles out right now that famously in Canada, I think it is, there's a woman at some church who came out as an atheist, and her congregation voted to keep her as their minister. And she's an atheist. And that's made the rounds on Facebook. And now what it's led to is an awareness of a view that is called Christian atheism. And it's where you basically want to follow the teachings of Jesus sans the spiritual stuff. Okay, so or the supernatural stuff.
So we've had John Dominic Crossan for decades now.
We have. But actually this...
Robert Funk and all these other...
Christian atheism started as from a belief that there was a God and he actually died. And you had some of these people that were like Christian atheists. And it's
so a maximally great being stopped being.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we need to.
Okay, now
we
just don't have basic logic being taught.
If you're worried about, we don't need to spend as much time on atheism as apologists do. Just trust me, we don't need to talk too much about that form of Christian atheism because it's pretty well dead. Yeah. This current form of Christian atheism is the one that says, God doesn't exist. Supernatural stuff is bunk. But we should still, Jesus was a good, swell guy.
And these are wonderful metaphors.
Right.
Yeah, that's the Crossan thing.
That's Jesus seminar type stuff.
Yeah. And as that's been around, and again, the answer to that is so what we're seeing is with Generation Z.
I'm not saying that's that big. I'm just saying that seems consistent with this.
Yeah, but
if you're telling me when I go to church, I'm getting meaningful answers for how to live my life, but like the sciencey stuff, I don't get that
the
at church.
Objection,
I get that
the problems, the evil.
That seems like the sort of thing that could lead to a Christian atheism.
Right. And but my point is what we're seeing is in this data, it seems like apologetics is not as taught as it should be in churches.
That's right.
Because they're getting all of the God loves you, has a plan for your life stuff, and self-fulfillment and all that other, which is still somewhat of a problem.
We had a lady call yesterday that was at the Unapologetic Conference in Austin, Texas that I did. And she told Steve ran in my office, he thought that would brighten my day up. And it did, and now I'm bragging about it to you. But she said she's signing up for Trinity because... She said that she had heard all this stuff about apologetics at that conference, and that that Braxton Hunter guy rocked my world, she said. That's the first time a woman, including my wife, has ever said that about me. so anyway, but here we go. The people at church are tolerant of those with different beliefs, 63%. Well, that's nice. The church seems to reject...
Yeah, but the church shouldn't... That's the wrong word. We should be welcoming. We shouldn't really be tolerant of.
Well, it depends on what you mean by tolerant.
We're welcoming to outsiders, but we shouldn't be tolerant of their beliefs.
Well, tolerant in that we're not trying to
God doesn't exist, but
put them at the end of a sword. But we are, but intolerant in terms of we're still thinking you're wrong.
Yeah,
people have redefined the term tolerant to mean. you have to agree
Accept,
with me.
right.
Yeah.
So if it means accepting, that's bad.
Right,
if it
right.
just means we put up with you,
I'd
then no.
say this. I don't think that's what that's saying. I think that's probably a positive thing. Maybe I'm wrong. The church seems to reject much of what's not. We already said that. The church is overprotective of teenagers, 38%.
Huh.
Well, I'm kind of glad that.
If that's true, that's
true.
good.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
I have teenagers.
Yeah.
Please be overprotective.
I'm not surprised that Generation Z sees that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
I see it as a good thing. Keep
Yeah.
it up, churches.
That's right.
The people at church are hypocritical.
That 38% needs to be 90%. You're not doing.
The people at church are hypocritical, 36%. The church now this is where you don't need to attack. This is where you need to recognize that number is going down.
Yeah, it used to be a bunch of people. Higher percentage people thought we were all hypocrites.
Yeah,
Now
they're not
only
saying
36.
that, and that's one thing the article highlights is that's not as
Right.
much of a thing
Now
anymore.
64% say we're not hypocrites.
Yeah, and
That's good.
So
So more than half no longer say that we're hypocrites anymore.
Yeah, they're probably. I mean, they're going to church now. The youth group thing has happened. There's big events. Church is more youth, family oriented, or I don't know if it's more, but that's a big push right now to be interested in the family and everything. So it may be that that's actually a positive change that's happened, and so that now when the older like baby boomers say, "Well, there's a bunch of hypocrites at church," that the Generation Z kid is sitting over there rolling their eyes. No,
it's
no,
like,
they're not. The church is not a safe.
Bunch of nice ladies that give me candy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they have coffee there and a cool rock band.
Right.
The church is not a safe place to express doubts. 27% of the faith and teachings I encounter at church seem rather shallow. 24%.
Wait, what?
These are going down.
Right. Only 24% think it's shallow.
Right.
Now, if you listen to my Facebook feed that I was ranting about on Trinity Radio about my Facebook feed, the modern church is, producing a bunch of empty-headed, shallow,
I know what those people,
blah, 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 blah.
But the people that were arguing with you about that, they would say, yeah, and you're listening to shallow Generation Zers telling you it's not shallow. So
yeah, but at least these are the people who aren't calling you hypocrites all day long.
That's right. Win-win. All right, the church seems like an exclusive club, 17%. So those numbers are going down.
Wait, it's just some country club, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, what we've heard for years.
Yeah, they're not saying that anymore.
Only 17%.
Well, you know what's interesting, though, is I'll give Generation Z something I won't give millennials because
Of churchgoers. 17% of churchgoers.
Of church, fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we were hearing all of these complaints, it was probably churchgoers making those complaints.
Right.
Everyone I'm at church with, they're all hypocrites. I mean, they weren't, but they were probably saying that. Right?
And on that shallow issue, now this may be a special case, but I'd like you to give testimony, Jonathan. Recently, you started attending the church that I attend, and it's one of these quote-unquote trendy multi-site churches with
I've caved,
coffee
folks. I've
and
caved.
Music and all that kind of stuff, like trendy music. Like all the music sounds like Coldplay.
And my kids love every
what
bit
we
of
would
it.
I think the perception out there is that the pastor of a church like that is just doing Joel Osteen type stuff.
Nonsense. This guy is more biblically solid than all of the preachers besides your dad that I've heard in this city.
Well, there you go. I didn't say that, folks, but
Yeah.
But basically, you said what I hoped you'd say. So, yeah.
Notice I've heard you preach them. I didn't say you. I said your dad.
You haven't heard me this year in this city preach. so anyway, the point is, that's pretty good. More than half of Gen Z says church involvement is either not to 27% or not at all.
He gives deep sermons. I give Brett that.
Yeah.
Deep sermons.
that are fit our definition that we
yes.
gave 2 episodes ago. That episode didn't do too well. I don't understand that. Oh well, it's because you know why it didn't do too well. It's because a bunch of shallow Christians.
That's right.
All right, more than half of Gen Z says church involvement is either not to, that's 27%, or not at all important, 27%. Only 1 in 5 says attending church is very important to them, 20%. The least popular of the 4 options. Okay, very important was the least popular of the. So 1 in 5 Generation Zers are going to church. Mm-hmm. Why is, if I understood that right, but I have trouble with statistics sometimes. Why is church unimportant? Non-Christians and self-identified Christians have different reasons. Among those who say attending church is not important to them, 3 out of 5 Christian teens say, I find God elsewhere, 61%.
61?
Mm-hmm.
They find God. But what is
this
that?
is of everybody. Wait. non-Christian and self-identified Christians have different reasons. Among those who say attending church is not important to them,
Right.
3 out of 5 Christian teens say I find God elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
While about the same proportion of non-Christians say church is not relevant to me personally. The non-Christians' most popular answer makes sense. They're not Christians after all. But Christians' reasoning is an indicator that at least some churches are not helping to facilitate teens' transformative connection with God. Reasons, church, we already looked at that.
Again, apologetics.
So there's the end of the article.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Oh, science in the Bible. You want more specific detail on that?
No.
Science in the Bible are in conflict, 24%. Independent, they refer to different aspects of
And
reality.
why should you care?
31%.
Science gets so much stuff wrong anyway.
But see, that's why they're saying that. They listen to Trinity Radio.
and I hear people like me
and they
say
hear
that,
you
and they're
say
like,
that, and then they're like, see, these people don't care about science.
prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Bring it on, kids.
But let's look at the data this way. The boomers thought it was in conflict, 16%.
Science is proud of it. They're like,
Listen,
we fail all the time. It's okay to fail. It's okay. It's part of
that's
science.
how you
we
get to
just
the
fail
truth, right?
every day. Every day we fail.
Well, I agree.
Right. Every
that
day you fail. You know what never fails? Love never fails. You know what else never fails? God never fails.
Well,
you know what fails worse than everything? Science.
Yeah, but it fails so that you can get to the answer. It fails enough times till we find the right answer. Don't ditch science. Christians have pioneered science. Look at the data this way.
Yeah.
Look at the data this
and
way.
you know what?
Everybody
Christians
knows
do a
your
good
views
job.
on this.
Christians do a good job with science because they believe in a comprehensible cosmos
Okay, but they still-
for which science can actually work.
Okay,
if you're an atheist,
Of course, I agree, but they still have to, even the Christian ones, have to fail
I'm with
until they
David
get to
Wood.
the right
Science
answer.
is ours. We get credit for that.
Well, yeah, I am too. That's what I just said, to shut you down. But the point is, the Christian scientists, not the Christian scientists, but the scientists who are Christians still fail to get to the right answer.
The Christian scientists sit around in reading rooms.
The Christian scientists are like, just believe, man, and you're not sick. and
Yeah,
you won't
we'll
be
just
sick
come to
anymore.
our reading room and die of
That's why they
cancer.
went. I don't know if you guys know this. Did we do an episode on Christian scientists? I think we did. You know what they say about when somebody dies? Because Christian science, it's just you just have to believe, and they say, oh, like where we would say, like when you would say about your father, my father died in whatever year. They would say, well, he seemed to have died in whatever year. Okay. Anyway, look at the data this way. Don't cut me off. Look at the data this way. At how this has increased. The boomers, 16% said that the Bible and science are in conflict. Gen X, 19%. Millennials, 26%. Gen Z, 24%. So 2% down, but basically the same. That's interesting. What's happening that's going on?
Come to Trinity College of the Bible and Theological Seminary and study apologetics, and you'll read books that try to explain what's going on.
And if you don't do that, which that's what you should do, at least listen to more episodes of Trinity Radio.
Yes. Or you could listen to our sister podcast, The Narrow Path with Steve Gregg, the Bible Brodown with Matt Chisholm and Billy Windland, and, of course, Soteriology 101 with Leighton Flowers.
But I know you're wrapping up, but I don't want to just give the data and complain about it.
I like to complain
or be
about
glad
it.
about the
I'm
good things.
not wrapping up. I'm throwing in more commercials.
Well, I do want to wrap up, but I want to end with. I do
Well,
want,
then just
but I
shut
don't want
up,
to end
then.
before I do the Dan Tanner. Is that the Full House? They always end with a little emotional punch, but it is true. Like what I'm bothered about is not what you're bothered about. What you're bothered about is we focus lopsidedly on atheism within evangelism and apologetics. And my concern is just that we're not focusing on it enough, and we need to push harder and try to get these pastors to be concerned about apologetics, to get youth workers learning apologetics.
We're not focused on it enough in churches.
Yeah, we need church people to pick this up and learn how to approach these and how to have these meaningful conversations and how to. But really, at the bottom of it all is just we need to love these people and show them the love of Christ, because love is the greatest apologetic. Several years ago, I went to a conference, the National Conference on Christian Apologetics, and Josh McDowell was there, and he was going to talk about. I think I said this recently in a podcast, but he was going to talk about the greatest apologetic, and we all bought it. We were like, oh, is he going to talk about, there's some new argument, some new manuscript they found? No, what it was he gave his personal testimony, and it's a fantastic one. You ought to go try to find it and listen to it. It's very emotional, but in the end, his point was love is the greatest apologetic. We need to love these people and reach them with the message of the cross, because
he's right.
The gospel is the power of God unto
As
salvation.
I said on my Facebook wall here recently, to all apologists, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use apologetics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. So anyway, but if you're out there and you are a person from Generation Z or not, and you're looking for an answer,
we got them.
We've got answers.
And we'll tell you where not to go find answers, like the Reformed theodicy.
But the intellectual...
I had to do that.
You may have intellectual concerns, but if this is true, that the problem, the arguments from evil are working for the atheist here, I want you to understand that there's always going to be an emotional problem with that. That we don't decide what's true based on emotion. If you're going through a difficult time right now, emotionally, something bad happened to you or your family, then this intellectual stuff isn't going to resonate. But it's good to learn these answers that Christianity does have, so that when you're in that tough moment, they're there for you, and you have access to them. They're already there. And we do have those answers. And we'd love to share them with you further. But contact us, email us. We'd love to talk to you, especially, hey, if you're a Generation Z person and you disbelieve in the Christian message and you'd like to talk to us, maybe we could have you on the show. Let us know. All right, so I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
I've said all our commercials.
All right, man. We'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.
If you would like more content, click here and keep watching Bible studies. Click up here. And finally, we want you to subscribe. We need more subscribers, so click here.